Hi guys, my name is Amanda Barbara. I'm the moderator for today's panel. We're going to be talking about money and crowdfunding. I'm going to let each panelist give a small intro of who they are and what their platform is all about, and then we'll get started. So we'll start at the end with Steven.
Okay, my name is Steve Plattman. I'm an audit partner at Anchin, your host. I principally practice in the technology area. I've startup companies up to established companies doing $50, $60 million of revenue. I also have a number of clients in the food industry, and those clients come to us, sometimes startup companies, established companies, and our principal services we provide them, besides accounting and taxes, consulting. We really try to get in at the early stage to help these companies out, all their equity transactions, organization, just any kind of questions they have. So down the road, when they are looking to eventually sell the company or get investors, the company is organized, the financial records are in good shape, and that's pretty much what we provide for these companies. So.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. My name is Oren. I'm a co-founder of PAVE. We're an online lender exclusively focused, as far as regs permit, on millennials, the millennial demographic. That means we lend to people aged 20 to 35 years old. And the big problem that we're addressing is that people starting their careers have very limited access to funding. We've seen great quality candidates in terms of credit and potential. It's simply not being able to access funding at reasonable rates, forced to use their credit card to take a General Assembly course or to relocate to New York, and effectively paying around 17, 18, 19%. So what we do is we look beyond traditional ways of, analyzing credit. We look at additional variables such as education, such as field of study, such as earning potential, to come up with an employability score, and we give a rate based on those factors, not just FICO. So three main use cases that we have are take a further education course, such as General Assembly or Dev Bootcamp, and we've partnered with around 40 schools nationwide now. And second use case is we need to consolidate onerous, credit card debt. And the third use case is relocation, so moving to the big city to pursue your dreams. So what we're about is really enabling the future generation to access better priced credit.
Hi, I'm Ryan Feit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Seedinvest. Seedinvest is a leading equity crowdfunding platform that's based in New York City. We work with startups who are raising between a seed to Series A round and connect them to our investor network of just over 6,200 accredited investors, and also includes some family offices and VCs as well. We are a high quality platform, so we're highly vetted. Historically, we've taken about 2% of companies that have applied on our platform, and we do our own independent due diligence and then open those companies up to our investor network. This year, we've done about $15 million in volume. Our average raise for a company is about $500,000. Investments this year have ranged from $5,000 at the low end to $750,000 at the high end, with probably the highest average check in the industry at about $37,000, $37,500. And what else do I have? We just partnered with a company called Gus, which works with about 80% of the angel groups worldwide. And early next year, we'll be launching a kind of co-branded site that we'll be hosting, which will collectively give us access to over 50,000 angel investors. So, and will give us access to a lot more startup companies as well.
Hi, I'm Dan Miller, co-founder and president of Fundrise. We're the first real estate crowdfunding platform in the US that lets anybody invest for as little as $100 in a single commercial real estate deal. We actually began from the real estate development side. We're buying and developing projects in emerging neighborhoods in DC, and felt that, why can't we let local citizens invest alongside us in these deals? It turned out there was a lot of securities regulation around that made it very difficult. But we spent 2 years working through that, and in August 2012 launched with the first equity crowdfunded project in the US for real estate with our own development deals, and now we scale the platform as for other developers around the country. So mainly urban infill real estate projects, top 20 or 30 markets, and hopefully Europe next year.
Hi, my name is Amanda Barbara. I am the co-founder and vice president of Pubslush. We are a reward-based crowdfunding platform geared toward the publishing industry. So we work with authors, traditional publishers, and self-publishers to help them raise funding in advance of publication. It's a great way for them to test the market, gain pre-orders for their upcoming books, and really mitigate their financial risk. We've been in business a little over 2.5 years, and our authors, our biggest raise has been a little over $40,000. Our authors are seeing the benefit to Pubslush being that we provide them with all of their market analytics and reader data. So they're really using us to better their marketing strategies post their campaign with us. We're here today to talk a little bit more about crowdfunding, and know it's a new industry, an up-and-coming industry. So our first question is, what's the most important aspect, you gentlemen, about preparing a crowdfunding campaign? What's the most important element? Yes.
Yeah, I think there are two components. First, we're actually selling securities, actual investment, so the kind of basic financial underwriting and diligence information has to be available. But we've found that people are really investing in a story and a narrative. A lot of our projects, we just were awarded our first deal in Detroit today, actually, by the city, the redevelopment of the old Tiger Stadium. And so that type of project really connects with people who are from that city, who know that area, who know that project. And they are investing not just because they're going to own real estate and be able to make money, but they're also going to be part of something. So we found that the narrative behind what people are investing in with videos and with content is what really connects them to make the investment online when they're more separate than they would in a traditional investment kind of offline relationship.
Yeah, so I would echo what Dan just said, and I would also add that one of the mistakes that we see a lot of entrepreneurs make when they come to Seedinvest is that they have a tough time sometimes raising capital offline, or they haven't started yet. And it's kind of that if you build it, they will come mentality, where they expect that they launch their campaign online and all of a sudden, people are just going to start throwing money at them left and right. The reality is, whether you're on Kickstarter or an equity crowdfunding platform, the same kind of truth holds, which is that raising capital is hard work, and most successful entrepreneurs are doing a lot of prep work ahead of time. So during the campaign, it's really important to continue to raise money offline, be talking to people. If you actually set up a lead investor up front and then raise money online, it makes it easier. So it's important, although raising capital online can definitely facilitate the process and cut some of the pain and time to close down, it's still hard work, and you should prepare. Definitely would echo the point of preparing due diligence materials ahead of time. That can slow down the process quite a bit if you haven't gone through that before. And the last piece I would just say is that there's something called general solicitation that became feasible for kind of startup companies on September 23rd of last year, and that allows companies to raise money publicly for the first time. And so if you're a company that has raised money successfully on Kickstarter and you have a lot of backers, or you have a lot of customers, or a big network, these are things that you can now leverage to raise capital easier. So take the time to think about what unique assets you might be able to leverage ahead of time.
So at PAVE, we don't actually run crowdfunding campaigns, but I can comment on what makes a successful applicant for PAVE. And so I think if you apply in a lot of other lending sites, or you go to your bank, people mainly, the lenders tend to look at your FICO score. So FICO is one element that we do consider, but at PAVE, as I mentioned before, we also look at other factors such as your education, your employment, and most importantly, your employability, your potential. So to the extent that you can demonstrate or highlight to us what you have actually done to make us understand what your employability and potential is, we can give you a better rate based on that. So I think I'd encourage everyone to apply on PAVE, and not just and be confident that by raising a bit more detail and making us aware a bit more detail about yourselves, we can hopefully give you a much more affordable rate.
Well, I guess we get involved on the behind the scenes with the due diligence, financial due diligence. We help get companies organized behind the scenes, get their financials and tax returns up to speed, make sure that the organization is the proper organization, and make sure all the information is there. So when people come and look at the company, it's a very smooth process. We get involved in a lot of outside investors, and the first thing we get involved is the due diligence, and it's a painful process. They ask a lot of questions, a lot of documentation, and if you're not organized, the credibility is going to be pretty much gone as soon as you don't produce information. So We get companies organized, make the due diligence seamless, and usually a successful transaction occurs.
I'm just going to touch upon reward-based crowdfunding and what I think the biggest thing for success in that arena would be. I think the preparation for your actual rewards is key, and making sure that you're putting rewards out there that would allow you to A, raise the amount of money you want to raise, so do your math, of course. You know, I've seen people that have built rewards at the $5, $10, and $25 level, and they'll never get that $100,000 number they want. So making sure you're putting things out there and the math does add up, but also making sure that they're realistic. Don't build a reward that you think it's not marketable to anyone. You're going to have to market those rewards. Just echoing what Dan and Ryan had said, you know, you have to prep and you have to be able to drive traffic to your actual campaign. So having things that are available that people, you know, people are already interested in is really important and really key. We have a few more questions, but our time is going to run out really quickly. I just want to make sure there's no questions. We want to make this really interactive. Does anyone have any questions about crowdfunding directly for any of the panelists? No? Okay.
Can someone comment on the concept of transparency in crowdfunding, as opposed, in my opinion, like we were talking about disruptive technology earlier, and I think crowdfunding is a very disruptive method of raising money as opposed to other private equity forms. So can someone just talk about that?
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, it showed in regards to starting your money on, like, for example, a reward-based crowdfunding platform, and then you're going to go out and raise, you know, a Series A or more funding. It's great. The transparency is key because you're showing that you have potential buyers for your product. You're showing who your founders are, having a video, so you're being upfront in that regard. And seeing, like, I was on a panel with a gentleman that ran a Kickstarter campaign for his, he was doing, like, tailored pants, and it was like customized to you. And he found out through his crowdfunding campaign that the most popular color was black, and he was only selling like brown and blue or something. So he used that market research to be able to pitch to investors to say, through this process, we learned X, Y, and Z. So it's a great starting point to catapult your business model. In regards to being transparent, I hope that answers your question. I mean, I think you need to be as upfront as possible, telling who your potential buyers are, how much you want to raise, what are your stretch goals, what do you want to do with that money, where do you see the business going if you raise XYZ price point, and then using that, you know, if you're going to use it for marketing to push your company to the next level, state that you're going to use it for marketing. And I think it's super important to communicate with your buyers, like, or communicate with your supporters. If you're having you know, a huge problem with getting your delivery date, you know, by the certain time you promise, make sure you're communicating with them. We encourage everyone on Pubslush to, you know, if you're between 3 cover designs, ask your readers which cover design they like. Get them involved in the process. They'll feel more a part of your success down the line.
Yeah, I would add to just that we ran a small crowdfunding campaign on AngelList about a year ago. And for us, the reason we did it wasn't necessarily to raise money for the company so much as to get the word out about what we were actually selling as a product. So when in PAVE 1.0, we were selling effectively investments in individuals, so access to people's future earnings. And it could only be accessible by accredited investors. It's a very difficult market to actually access. But via raising money on AngelList, we got a lot of people interested in the product itself, and they actually contributed to the growth of the platform, so it became kind of a double whammy, where people invest in both the equity and the product itself, which fueled our growth.
I didn't hear everything that was mentioned, so this may have been discussed, but I was just wondering, you know, the third part of the Jobs Act, which we know is not happening now, maybe happening in a year, maybe not, who knows, with Washington. I personally see that as very dangerous because at the end of the day, equity, as every investor knows, becomes worth what you could, if you don't raise money, if you don't succeed, it's worthless. And I see it as a way for unscrupulous people to scam a lot of people. And I think that ends up leading to a correction. So we'll have this equity crowdfunding, we'll have a bunch of websites pop up, a lot of people screw a lot of people, then we're going to end up with a correction, and I think that that's going to hurt that whole market. I'd love your professional opinion.
I'm not sure where you're getting that basis from, but there's actually been crowdfunding in Europe with non-accredited investors for a few years now. 0 cases of fraud. There's been crowdfunding in Australia for about 8 years now. Non-accredited investors, 0 cases of fraud. On some of the small business lending sites like Funding Circle in the UK has been around for a long time. No fraud, very little failure rate. So I think there's actually very little empirical evidence that there would be fraud, and what there will be is failure. And the reality is, whether it's VCs, accredited angel investors, or non-accredited investors, investing in alternative assets is risky, and there's not a lot of liquidity. You might have to hold for 5 to 7 years. And so my bigger fear with Title III is absolutely not fraud, but it's the fact that people need to be educated on the fact that these are different types of companies. You need to diversify, they're illiquid, and you should only allocate a certain percentage of your money, otherwise there will be issues. In terms of I wasn't sure about the timing question. I think we'd probably all agree that we're not sure about the timing, and I'm sure Dan and I would have predicted something different 2 or 3 years ago than is the case now. But
and also, crowdfunding is much broader than just small private businesses. I mean, so we focus on real estate. It's an institutional asset, and some of our deals are side by side, large family offices or institutional investors. So it's not just equity in startups. It's any sort of capital raising from retail investors, debt instruments. It could be backed by hard assets like mortgage and real estate. So it really is much broader, and I think people think of it as kind of donations, risky business, but it really just opens up a majority of enterprises to individuals who are right now limited and locked out from really investing in anything except a company that's already made all its money and then goes public for an exit. So I think it's just the idea of being more inclusive, and right now with the kind of strict regulations, it just ends up over-regulating to the point where small investors have almost no options other than the public equity market. So I think all in all, it will provide more opportunities for small investors, which at a net level will give them more potential return.
The reason why I mentioned fraud is just because if you look at Kickstarter and Indiegogo,
there's been no fraud on Kickstarter and Indiegogo that I'm aware of.
They could say use a dialogue offline.
That's not fraud, that's failure. Exactly.
But with reward-based,
Most startups fail.
That's true.
It's a reality.
but with reward-based crowdfunding, you have to remember that you're technically in contract. If you're a supporter for a reward-based project, you're in contract with that person that's making the product. Kickstarter is out of the equation, Indiegogo is out of the equation, Pubslush is out of the equation, because you're giving, that $20, $50, $100, $10,000 to the individual person. So yes, you're taking a risk, but you're going to put your money into anything, and you're not getting equity in a reward-based crowdfunding campaign. You're trying to get that product. You're taking a risk. That's what crowdfunding is. Are there any other questions? We have 1 minute and 7 seconds. Thank you.